Works for Harvesters. So.
Okay, we're on. Okay.
Yep.
Since Marshall's not here yet tonight, congratulations. I'll chair the meeting as the past chairman. So I'd like to call the January 2018 EDC committee meeting to order. First, number 2 item here is to approve the December 27th regular session minutes.
I move to approve the December 27, 2017 regular session minutes.
Okay, is there any discussion on the minutes, corrections or anything? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, they've been approved. Next item is the staff report.
Thank you, Chairman. Browning, we've got a couple of things. Nothing slowed down, even though the weather has made it kind of bad to do some of this stuff. I am anticipating several subdivisions going to be moving forward, which are going to be bringing more people for the school and everything else to be coming through the Planning Commission side. So we are continuing to see that residential growth. I've had several conversations related to various commercial property developments that may be, or people are looking at, trying to figure out how to get their stuff figured out and get ready for when the expansion, explosion, whatever you want to call it, starts here. So we're moving in that direction and actually fairly quickly. One of the aspects that we often see is, and Leah can attest to this, is that we rarely do we have much vacancy in any of our commercial properties. As soon as something goes vacant, we get something rather quickly in that. And some of them want, 5,000 to 8,000 square feet. Some of them only want smaller. Related to that, I'm going to suggest to the chairman here in a little bit that we potentially adjust item 10 in our agenda and move it up, because we do have someone, a public comment, who's here but has a meeting later. Okay. Specifically on that point that of vacancies, etc. And that person wants to discuss potential options for it and make sure that it kind of fits with where the EDC strategic plan's going. So I'll request that in a bit. I'm pleased to announce that we have received the infrastructure plans for the Smithville Marketplace project up on the hill. Received the sewer and water plans today. Should see groundbreaking to start on the grading in the next week or two. So we're going to start seeing dirt moving and utilities going in. But like I said, I just received those plans for the construction today, and it's got to go through engineering review for the water and sewer line, the mass grading stuff, which is the storm water and all that, will happen first. So we're moving forward. That's one of the issues that we've got to resolve. They are finalizing surveys to get easements or rights of way documents, so we can submit that to the 5 or 6 property owners who all believe, and for however long have believed, that is in fact a dedicated public street. It is by operation of law because it's been there so long and it's operated as a street, but no one can find the actual documents that created it. The engineers for the commons, we can't. No one can. Title companies, no one's been able to find the actual dedication documents. Was able to find something in the 70s where the city would pave it. It was a dirt road or gravel road or something, but no documents. So hopefully that'll be resolved, because we have a water line that currently runs through there. There's gas lines that run through there and a road. So we'll hopefully have that knocked out here shortly. If you have any questions about any of those things, let me know. I'll try to answer them here. Otherwise, like I said, the only other thing would be to consider moving public comment up on the agenda so that the citizen property owner here can make his discussion and make sure he gets it to his other meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Jack and Stephanie? Okay, with that request, I'd like to make a motion to move the public comment up to the next topic. We have to vote on this, right?
Yeah, I would suggest that
So,
moved and seconded.
If we need a second.
okay, all in favor of moving item 10 to item 4?
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is public comment. Come on up here.
If I can, Darren, if you want to come on up and have a seat. It's Darren Sherry. He's a local property owner and business owner, and he has the commercial complex where Mosaic, Subway, and the medicine shop, and now there's a brand new Vacancy. He's got some thoughts, and he and I have had several conversations, and I recommended he come talk to you as it relates to what his idea is. So I'll give it up to Darren to let him kind of lay out what he's thinking and see what you all think.
Thank you, Jack. That space is, I don't want to say difficult, but it's 1,800 square feet. It's towards the back of the building. We've got great traffic there, great building. One of the ideas that I had came up with and visited with Jack about it, and he was pretty excited, which was great. I wanted to visit with you guys to see if there's a demand and if it's logical to go down this road. But maybe do some, I'll call them executive suites or individual office suites. Like Jack had talked about, entrepreneurs, they start out of their home, they kind of outgrow that, they need a place to meet. So one of the ideas is that space actually has individual offices. And Patty Farr was in there, and then there's also a conference room. So what we would do is we would allow individual businesses, be it an attorney, or an insurance agent or whatever, and then we would allow them to use the conference room as well. So you could have your own private office, place to meet with people, but if you needed a larger meeting and you needed to, have a conference room, that would be available to those, just those tenants. I didn't know what the demand is in Smithville on that. One of the things that Jack and I had talked about was sometimes it's easier to eat an elephant one bite at a time than it is to try to get rid of, the whole 1,800 square feet. Do you guys have any interest like that? Is there, what are you guys hearing from the businesses and the people that come into town?
It's definitely a demand issue. So, my experience just in the chamber office, we calls quite a bit in our chamber building. We have the insurance agent and the real estate agent. And there's, Shireen with her area, she's got a lot of different people that are office space out. So I know there's definitely a demand.
Sure, and I think when Darren and I discussed this, it was more of, I was leaning along the lines of a lot of the conversations over the last couple of years with entrepreneurs. And for whatever reason, until I just sat down here and I listened to him speak to you all, it dawned on me that the phraseology that had been used in the past was like an incubator type scenario. I see, Pete, you were here for all of those conversations. So that's kind of what...
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I mean, I don't have experience with incubators, but I've read a lot about them, and it's basically, and it's, I guess like iWorks is.
Yep, right.
And you provide. It could be a place where you provide not just office space, but infrastructure like copiers and phones and whatever support that you usually need an office for. I don't know if that's something you were envisioning or not, or just leasing individual office space and sharing a conference room. But you get more into the incubator type thing when you have people that can share resources.
Yeah, I think if you had a mail room and a receptionist or something like that.
Yeah, the Regis office type setting.
Regis.
Regis. So you can You can go and even rent their conference room on a couple-hour basis if you've got a meeting that's larger than what you're capable of having. You know, a lot of times they'll even set up long-distance interviews from those type of locations. So you'll go in and do a video interview, and they'll have someone there who kind of help set up and get that started, and then they step out and you continue with the process there.
I suspect we're
REGUS.
Okay, all right.
I suspect we're suggesting way more than you were thinking.
Yeah, but, you know,
just renting space. But
that's what I thought, yeah.
When you put it as mandatory, people would need a conference room, obviously, so for sure. Have you looked into either similar Kansas City at all?
No.
So, Bob Hartman and John Miller have a similar concept in North Kansas City. I believe it's 100% occupancy. They've been full since the month they opened. They were looking at doing a similar concept at one point. It's just finding the space. So it might be worth connecting the two of you together to see if,
yeah, maybe they'd be interested in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
you can see their model of what they do.
Yeah,
see
true.
what works.
Right, yeah, I mean, I've got plenty to do. I'm not looking for any more businesses to run. So, yeah, I mean, if somebody like that would be interested in coming in and saying, hey, I'll take the whole space and we'll manage it from there, and they already know how to do it. I just want it to be successful, you know, and keep the building full and keep people coming in.
Yeah, I can definitely put you in touch with you.
Okay, all right, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, any other ideas on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I thought you all would be probably one of the better resources from him. You've been diving down pretty deep into the thicket here on a lot of the stuff over the last year and a half or whatever. So, and all of you are fairly active in the community, so you kind of hear and see and know what's going on. And I know from the 1,800 square feet is what he's talking about here, but in the general community, that spec building, that ability to move quick, is what we've been looking for. Some of them want big giant buildings, some of them want smaller office spaces, and everything I've heard, and Leah was able to confirm it in her conversation here with Darren earlier, that's your experience, what you've seen and you've heard. So
Okay, great.
we've got a couple of contacts,
Okay.
and we'll get you some more information.
I'll give you my card.
Yeah, and I'll get to.
Yeah.
I'll reach out and give you some.
Okay.
advice.
All right, great. That's great. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and I appreciate it. If you have any ideas, definitely reach out to me, and you know, I'd like to get that space filled back up, and if we can make that work, that would be even better yet.
Send me an email.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you.
Thanks, Darren.
Appreciate it.
Yep. We'll see you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you. Any other public comment?
Thanks for getting me in the quick chat.
Apparently not very public.
Is there any public comment online?
Nothing yet, if we want to come back to it later.
Okay, I think maybe we will at the end of the meeting and see if there's any questions we can address that came in on
The new business side.
the social
Yeah,
side.
we can hit it.
It is nice when people comment.
Well, it's nice to be able to process that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is social media analytics.
If you look right under your package, should be the analytics page. I actually did these yesterday, and just in looking at it midday today, all of the numbers went up further. So on Facebook, you can see all our numbers are back up now that we're back on a regular schedule instead of shifting in the middle of the month. So total page views are up 42% actually, not the 36. Page likes are up 28%. Reach is up 75%. In this last month, we reached just about 13,000 unique individuals. So more than the population of the town, which that's the idea. We want to keep growing that audience. Our post engagements were up 77%, so people are interacting with the post. Video views, now that most of that is working again, is up 41%. The time they're viewing is up 62.8%. and our actual page followers are up 33%. So again, all around, Facebook as sort of the gorilla of social media. All those numbers are up and looking positive. The sentiment is still about where it has been, 30% positive, 50% neutral, and 20% negative. That's become pretty standard. So, if you'll flip over, Twitter also shows all our numbers way up. We have been fairly active on Twitter lately. Impressions in the last 28 days are up 104.5%, 60.6 thousand tweet impressions. So that's everything from hitting their page to getting likes, retweets, all of it, comments. So that's all really good. Profile visits are almost 4,000, up 282%. Our mentions are up 152%, and our followers, even though it's only up 47, that's still 4% of our total, which is still pretty good, considering that not too long ago we were a lot lower. So, and again, 38% positive, 20% negative, 42% neutral, so those are pretty standard. Instagram, we're still just sort of getting started in that. Most people use it more as sort of a photo diary. We're using it a little differently, so it's not a surprise that we're not getting huge numbers on that, but this month alone we are up 25% on followers. So, a few final notes on these numbers. So, social media outlets, especially Facebook, but really all three of these major ones, use algorithms to determine what goes to a person's page and how high up it goes and how long it stays on the page, which all influences how likely they are to actually see it. Because unless you're spending 4 hours at a time digging through, you're never going to get to the bottom of your feed. So it takes what it thinks they want to see based on things they've interacted with in the past, things they've liked, things that, cookies that are on their device from sites they visited, all that sort of stuff. The analytics are showing that our citizens at least, interact as much or more with some of the engagement posts that we've been putting out there as they do with any of our business posts. And the reason that's important is because every time they interact with one of those posts, it makes it more likely that in the future they're going to see any of our other posts, whether they're business or engagement. There's also the added benefit that it humanizes us a little bit. We're not just faceless robots that work for the city. We're people who, we can laugh, we can make mistakes, all that sort of stuff. In breaking down the numbers a little more on the engagement posts, this month we've had 37 business posts. This is the main page only. So 37 business posts, 5 engagement posts. So about a 10% ratio when you add in any other sundries that hit our page. When you add in all of the city pages, we're talking less than 2% of all city posts, so 2 out of 100. However, we're getting a very different set of people reacting to those posts. On our business posts, we tend to have maybe a dozen individuals that pretty consistently post on topics that interest them. On the, I want to say entertainment, but really engagement posts, we've had almost no recurrence. It's always somebody new that happens to see it and goes, oh, that's interesting, I kind of like that. Or, hey, I'm going to go find some more on this. And they actually click through it, and our numbers are showing that. So that's just a little clarification on why we've been doing those engagement posts. There is a method to the madness, and it's based on how the social media pages work. One last thing I want to throw out there, mentioning that we here as city staff are humans, we do make mistakes. I'll be the first to admit that there have been mistakes with the social media page. Some of you, I'm sure, have seen them. Some of those are directly, I'm directly responsible for those. Especially, I have taken a little more personally than I should have some comments about the existence and function of my position here with the city. Didn't think that would come into question, but it did, and I took it personally. So that was admittedly unprofessional of me, and I do want to offer my apologies to this committee and to the board as a whole if I have brought any embarrassment to the city in that respect. Jack and I have had a long talk about how we want to move forward from that, and we'll actually be bringing to the board an addendum to the social media policy that will give a little more clear guidance on how we're going to respond and react in the future to all posts, but especially to individuals that are seemingly targeting us. So, that said, are there any questions about any of the social media goings-ons or analytics?
No, I think you're doing a great job. And social media, just in general, is a beast of its own when we bring it into the workplace.
Right.
We learn as we go, and it's not easy. I understand, and it's a process you kind of learn and you figure out, is it an informational page? Do you want to be interactive?
Right.
You have to interact. It's a challenge.
Well, and government's different than any other. It's different than nonprofit. It's different than businesses. The way you want people to interact and the way you have to try and gain that is very different than anything that I've done before. But, like you say, learning as I go along and putting some of those to use. So.
It's in a lot of businesses now, social media is a full-time job.
Right.
So.
Sure. And I would like to add some of the data that Micah was reporting on related to the frequency of the engagement posts and how many they were. And I didn't think there were that many total. So that was, Micah, go find out how many we had. What's the percentage? Are we doing 80% engagement posts? And what I learned from looking at the data is the reason I think many folks believe that we have way too many of those is the algorithm that Facebook uses.
It works.
It pops up on everybody's feed. Anytime there's a comment and you've already looked at it, or you've commented on it, or you've shared it, it's coming to your feed and up top. So those hit more often. So it seems as though there's a lot of them, when in fact, literally there's been 5 of them.
Right.
So that was bizarre to me, but now when you see it, the visual nature of it, oh, okay. And all of our other posts have been hitting those folks as well. So we've had the double benefit after looking at the numbers that Mike has presented. The engagement posts are locking it into people that aren't regular posters, and a lot of those folks aren't folks from Smithville, which is kind of the double-edged sword of where we're at. We want to get the word out about us and our city functions, but we are also trying to market the community and get more people engaging in Smithville, wanting to live here, move here, and more importantly, shop here. So all of those things seems to be moving in the right direction, albeit with some hitches that we're going to continue to work on. But this will be in front of the Board of Aldermen in the work session on a couple weeks down the way, so we can really get the board to give us some really clear direction and update the policy. I've had conversation with some folks. Our existing policy still has reference to MySpace. So I didn't notice that, but someone pointed out that we may want to get rid of MySpace. Oh,
I could comment. Since I engaged on these, maybe not appreciated.
No, that's okay, because I think...
I just have, let me have the floor. Just a couple observations. And I don't want to be, don't take criticism personally or anything, but I think we're improving on this, and I appreciate, you're coming forward with what you feel have been mistakes or whatever. But I almost feel like you two guys are double teaming people when they react to negatively. I don't know. I think you're both on there. I mean, I say bang bang. I see come out of the city of Smithville. I don't know who it is actually that's saying one or the other, but I can kind of figure it out. Is that happening? Are you both, is there one person just responsible for responding, or are you both going on there? Or
no, mine is usually if it's a post from the development department, That one's
Oh, that's
usually
when it-
from me.
okay.
Yeah, that one's usually coming from me.
Often what will happen is we both see it come up on Facebook and we both type a response
Right.
So I think that's something you got to work on.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, because the city's responding not necessarily the same way.
Well, and the
on
other
same
aspect of it
post.
is,
and it's usually a negative comment that's being responded to. So that's why.
and one of the things that
I just want to bring that to your attention. I
Absolutely.
don't want to discuss it
and,
really. I don't
no, I think it is worthy of discussion, and I will let you know. You probably haven't seen those in the last day or two.
Okay.
I've disengaged, had a long conversation with Micah, and when
I
we
think
have-
you should have one really take care of it,
Absolutely.
right?
That was the whole purpose of the position, was to have a consistent message, and I need to get out
Gotta
of it.
let go.
Yeah, right. That's hard sometimes, as everyone here knows.
It's like you don't have enough to do, Jack.
Yeah,
And,
but
and the
there are some
second
things.
comment that I hope that is taken constructively is that there are times when you don't need to respond. I mean, you're going to get negative feedback, or feedback you don't agree with, but it's coming. It's coming to you, and you can just accept it and acknowledge it and move on. You don't have to argue it on that. So you don't have to argue every negative message that comes in. And I see a trend in that, and I just say try to work against that.
That's the big thing I'm working on. My background is in teaching and debate, and so exactly. So correcting people was sort of what I did, and I'm trying to get out of that habit. I felt like a lot of my comments or at least were intended to be correction of facts, but I know that the tone doesn't work the same in government, and that's part of why they're not.
Well, they can't hear your tone.
Correct, because it's social media as well.
Yeah,
so
it's
that's something I'm actively working on.
Yeah, no facial intonations. You can't see any of that. Your voice adjustment.
Smile.
Yeah, you can't.
See, I was a speech teacher before, so all of that is still.
Yeah,
I'm still learning to separate.
Extremely politically correct. Extremely. Put it in the page if you have a question or concern, just call us.
Yeah, right.
and
Stop.
And not that I've got it perfect, but that's what I've started to do. If I see something pop up, hey, thanks for bringing this to our attention, and then I'll pick up the phone and call. Because, it is so easy for folks to jump on and pick apart a word or two that maybe you don't have quite right. And
Well, once you get a thread going,
continue
too,
that
it
on,
gets-
yeah,
it's just-
it-
well, and the other aspect of it is we have a pretty clear policy that, to be quite frank, I wasn't hammering home. Didn't have a conversation with Micah. Here's what we need to do. So I believe it's out. I asked Micah to make sure we put a link.
It's on our website, and I'm going to actually do a highlighted post on it, like tomorrow or the next day. So on our social media policy. And one of the big things is, those posts that I did take personally, that I let get to me, are the ones that are supposed to be hidden because they're not relevant to what we're actually discussing as a city. But instead, trying to respond to them, that was one of the big errors. Right. So that's that enforcement of the policy, and the fact that we need to, that I especially, since it's my job, that I need to make sure we're in line with that. That's going to be the big effort. So, okay.
Any other discussion on the social media?
I mean, I deal with that a lot at my business. And one thing that's, the people complaining seem to basically yell, and in certain environments, those are the negative people are the ones that are most likely to make a comment. So on my website, I basically ask every customer that makes a purchase to provide a review. And they only get asked if they make a purchase. So it's not just somebody randomly wanting to complain. Of those, we've got 4.7, 4.8 stars. There's 35,000 reviews, and they're overwhelmingly positive, obviously, if you got that high of a rating. Well, if you look on Facebook or Google or whatever, you'd think that we were awful. And sometimes it's easy to get kind of bummed out because you think everybody thinks you're awful, but then sometimes I just have to go read those other reviews, and it's like positive, 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 positive.
Well, that goes across the board.
Yeah.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right, and so you,
There's one bad one, the bad one's only like 60.
yeah, but in what you're doing here, there's no place where the positive people are going to be giving you those good comments.
Because if they're happy,
They don't say anything,
Right.
right?
I get you.
So you just got to remember that there's probably maybe as many as 90% plus that are happy that just don't say anything. And I don't know if there's a way to solicit those. I mean, it's different with me because every time I make a sale, I can push that out to them. I don't know how you would do that here, but the other thing is when you do get those negative comments, a lot of them are basically complaining about something that's just not true. Like they'll say that it costs them so much to return something, like it's our fault. It's like, well, you can bring it back to the store or you can ship it, whatever, but we're not charging you. That's just whatever you can pay your gas to drive back to Walmart, or they're not going to give you gas money to return something. So what I'll do is I'll try and say that, we offer free return shipping, and on your second purchase, if it's over $100, you get free return shipping again, and you're only paying for once, we're paying for it twice. If you have any other questions, whatever, please contact customer service. So you try and put the facts out there that make you look like you're nice, and then try and drag it off, to the side where you're asking them. You're not saying we're not going to discuss it. You're saying let's discuss this. Call us, come by, whatever. We'd be happy to explain the details.
And that's just to sort of put I don't want to say nail in the coffin, but just so we can move on. I think that's one of the big parts of the policy that we're going to be emphasizing. The policy actually specifies when possible, we should just be linking back to already published documentation, back to the website, to what our stances are on it, instead of trying to reword it and say it fresh, because errors can happen when you try and put it in your own words. And so being able to say, here's the document that has everything that you're asking about, but if you have more questions, our email is on the site, our phone is on the site, please contact us if you have further issues. So,
Sounds great.
I'm with you.
Well, sometimes, I don't know if I totally agree with that policy. As I suggested on one of my responses, that, having a communications coordinator can take small bites of stuff that goes on in the city that not everyone has an opportunity to find out about. They don't go to the website. They're not going to read through the minutes of a board meeting to try to figure out. And even those minutes of the board meeting are not going to explain what just happened. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Especially if you sit in the board meeting, you're not going to understand what's going on because
Great idea.
You got to have a packet in front of you. Otherwise. So if you take small bites of at the January, I don't know if this is not true, what I'm saying, I'm just making this up, but the January Board of Alderman meeting, the alderman decided to buy a truck, to do whatever. I mean, these are things that are accomplishments that are done, right?
Yes.
That could be bits of information that's shared on social media, and people will learn more about what's going on in the city in a more layman's sense, and they don't have to go to the webpage and dig it out. Right?
Well, that's the plan for our posts. A lot of the new posts are going to be that sort of stuff. I think, at least for my part...
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, for my part, I'm mostly talking about comments, especially if it's a controversial
No,
item.
that's appropriate. Yes.
That's where we're saying, we're just going to link you to the published documentation. If you have more questions, contact
Okay,
us.
thank you.
So you can bring this forward at a different time, but you mentioned, only X number of engagement posts versus X number of business posts. I think that'd be interesting to see.
Sure. The amazing thing is the number of, and that's just on City of Smithville page. We also have EDC, we have development, we have
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec,
And
and then
4
police.
well, 3 police in the pound, so.
Yeah, so we have several venues out there, all of them with a little bit different, and yeah, when you add all the other stuff into it, we're overwhelmingly moving in the right direction. We just have to, and I think, Pete, your comment on Facebook and suggestion was, there we go. That's another way to move forward. Didn't need to come to an EDC meeting to get the recommendation. We got it directly that way, and Mike has already been moving towards that. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Something I think we do need to watch, though, moving forward is the new redesign of Facebook, Twitter, trying to get friends and family higher up in newsfeed. It's going to become challenging for businesses.
I've been reading up on how to kind of adapt to that a little better and get some better results. We'll see.
So at any of that, if you learn anything, to share with our businesses in
Sure.
the community, would be
Yeah.
great as well. Yeah, and this guy here.
If I find anything that turns out it works to work with the new version of the algorithm, I'll pass it on.
I know a guy who's got some great food in a conference space, right?
and that, I think that's the other aspect why putting the analytic discussion as a separate item on this agenda was such a
Good idea, yeah.
a good idea, because it's going to give that to folks watching up there or wherever. Here's what we're seeing, doing what we're doing. So, yeah.
Sorry to take so much of your time.
I think it's productive. All right, moving on to the next item is the chamber report.
So business activity in town, Flowers Park Care has closed. The business was founded in 1978. Steve is retiring. He has retired. His Rhino Lane is closed as well. So the Rhino Lane is right back here. We've got Flowers Park Care. He owns the White House behind that and the land right there in the corner.
Land behind on the corner's been sold.
Oh, it has been
Yeah.
sold.
The Brown place is being the outfit for business too.
Which is?
The Rhino
Yeah,
Line, the
yeah,
garden?
yeah. Yeah. So, that's Steve.
It's the old gas station. Rhino Lining's the old gas station.
Will be missed. That was I heard about it right as after it happened, so I've been coming through what was going on. Primitive Creations, this Saturday is their last day. They're having a farewell party. And at 10 o'clock, it's at 10 o'clock is their farewell party. At noon is when Pony Designs takes over. So that should be, and I think she's moving in right now, so that's going to be a really easy transition. Really hard to see around. So they've done so much for our downtown, and have been a big part of our downtown for a long time. So they will be missed as well.
Pony Designs.
Similar, I think she does more, she's got a Facebook page.
Persons.
Yeah, she does a lot of different stuff, and you can see a lot of the different things she does on her Facebook page.
Cool.
Mine Rams is coming to a completion with their new location across from Price Chopper. I think they're gonna shut down for a week or two for the transition of moving their equipment up, so anybody that has membership can go into their other locations. And then at the end of February, they should,
When you say across from Price Chopper.
next to shelter insurance.
Oh, so south of the Casey's. Okay.
In the Japan salon and shelter insurance. So they took the gun shop and they took the
Cafe, coffee shop.
together and opened it up.
I get into that.
I was gonna say. They did put us out for fall, so we'll see how that goes.
Did they say anything about why they're moving?
No, I'm not sure. This location is an easier location
Yeah.
for people to.
More
get
population close by too.
So I would imagine that's a good part of it. Hildebrand Dental has opened up their new location in Weston. It's the only dentist office in Weston, and they've received a huge welcome. It's going to be a great thing for Weston. It's a great expansion off of, they started in Plattsburgh, they have their Smithville location, and now they're in Weston. They've done a phenomenal job, obviously, with their expansion here in town. So yeah, they're doing a great job. Justice Drug Store, Black Dirt has opened. I think a lot of people from Smithville have been down there. I was there during the soft opening. It was like a Smithville reunion. We turned around. So they're getting a lot of support from the community, and I know that they've been wanting to see
We were there Saturday night, and they were trying to purposely limit the amount of folks who were there.
Oh, really?
Because
Yeah.
they had been so busy and wanted to make sure they got it right. He did make it very clear to me that they're committed to reopening here, and so they're actually going to get some stuff done that they didn't get done originally when they first got the drugstore open, so I was excited to hear that.
Absolutely. So community events, tomorrow is Spread a Little Joy Day, and Rose Nancy puts that on. They do it, the school does a great job of supporting that event, and she's involved, and she's got a Facebook page where you can see ways to be part of it, and that's a big event that's happened around town for years. So eat and educate type events. We have the Mid-Continent Public Library Square One, which is their business resource service. January 26th, they have their small business boot camp. It's the usable technology that's over at Zona Rosa. That's put on by the Platte County EDC, the Northland Regional Chamber, and Mid-Continent Public Library. They are also doing a Facebook advertising for small businesses and organizations here at the Smithville branch, and that's February 6th. So Carol's been sharing these events with our chamber membership and had it on the social media page as well. And so I reached out to Rick. Morgan Perry's the one that does a lot of this with Square One, and I asked Rick to make sure any of these events that are happening, especially in the Northland, to definitely share with us. Because they, as we know, they do a great job. For our foodies, February 9th at the Parkville Branch, they have the Business of Wine with Kevin Hodge. He owns Cellar Rat down, I don't know if any of you have been there in downtown Kansas City. It's a really neat wine shop. They do wine tastings. So he's going to be leading a discussion with a panel with any of our restaurants. And Carol, I think, is going to send out a specific email to just our restaurants in town and share that with them. So we're going to be trying to work closely with Mid-Continent on sharing a lot more of the events that they're doing. We started the discussion, and so Dr. Schutz, chime in anytime you feel like there's something that you see as a concern. Spring job fair. We have reached out to Mid-Continent Public Library, to Cheryl Nichols, who, she's one of the teachers at the school with the business classes, and with FBLA. They've done a lot of stuff in conjunction with the chamber and our luncheons. And the city and the chamber, so I started an email conversation about now is the time to get this started. We talked about it last year, and I just didn't want to throw it together. I wanted it to be done right. So what Cheryl has, with the high school, has offered is to, for the FBLA program as their spring project, is to put on a job fair. They would have it in the gym. They would set up booths. The chamber and the library would work on the recruitment of the businesses. And then we've talked about, do we want it to be on Saturday? Do we want it to be during the lunch period where the students can come? So we're talking through a lot of those conversations. If we had it during the day, during lunch, would it be open to the general public? Is that a safety issue? We're talking through a lot of that stuff right now. So but we're going to get a date selected, and then the students are going to help us with the logistics of setting it up. In the center area, they'll have actual stations where they can do actual interviews with the students right there. So I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, we can work through that. Cheryl and I have talked, and she would be the point of contact for the high school. She's already visited with the high school administration, and starting to kind of answer questions like that. But to your specific question, that would simply be funneling these people through an area to check in, and they would get a visitor badge. And I would think that we could do those kinds of logistics. As we have talked about this, and I remember the original conversations, we talked about, I think it began, we were talking about the food industry.
Yeah.
And, trying to keep good health and whatnot. Dan, or Brian, I think Dan mentioned, if you could get a 40-hour a week, yeah.
People.
So that kind of started to come, am I right? You brought it up.
And then you had said that a lot of the pools come out in the spring
Yeah.
to the lunch area.
And so I guess my question is, if we are, are we talking about two different audiences here?
Yeah, that's the challenge, and that's where, Saturday morning maybe is great because then it's open to a broader
Combined audience,
But
yeah.
then we're going to lose the students because the students seem to be the ones that are really responding to these hotline signs.
Yeah, if we're looking for, high school students for part-time employment, I mean, you'll get a great response. Trying to mix the two audiences, I don't know that. I'm not saying it won't work, I'm just saying that.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
it may become a function of, do we hold two separate audiences? Because we know the high school one with the students will get response because they always do.
Especially if it's during the school day.
Right, because they
Get out of
can.
algebra class.
Right, because they get out of a class to go potentially find a job and get paid, yeah.
I mean, anything.
Don't you need math skills on the, some of these jobs?
And then on the other side, it becomes an issue of, okay, how do we get this other group of people in? But
And if there was going to be, I don't disagree with Todd, I think that's probably the touchstone of where we're, but if we were going to do two of them, a separate one, seems to me as though it would be best to set it up once on a Friday for the high school kids and then do it the next Saturday for everyone else. so
Well,
that-
the challenge that I see for our restaurants is if we're going to do it on a weekday, it probably needs to be on a Monday because our restaurants are running restaurants during the week. That's my only concern.
Well, mornings are fine too.
Yeah.
for a lot,
Yeah, so maybe we could do the adults either before or after. Maybe we could have the adults in at 3, have the students.
I remember having families come in and applying for jobs. That's at least 2, if not 3, full groups of a mom and 2 kids come in and turn in applications.
Maybe dish after.
Well, I would, but
They gotta stay there long.
we're saying, stay away from them.
Maybe that's the incentive, right? You stay long enough, you get a
There's a
sandwich.
lot of other things I could say, and you could say later, but you have to stay gainfully employed for a month or 2. And usually there's a huge washout. For every 5 people I hire, I only get 1 sticks around.
I wonder if like, I've got another Northland Caps intern this time, and I think that's a great program that a lot of businesses don't know about.
Farther into that.
Yeah, and I don't know that the kids really know enough about it. My kids never even mentioned it.
I've got 2 or 3 employees that are in Caps.
Yeah,
Do they all get a presentation?
yeah.
From
Well, they don't want to work.
But I would love to have, out of video.
Is it during algebra?
Facebook, or website, people, all those kids come in and do real world stuff. I need all my stuff to be done.
Yeah, I've got a gal, the gal that's working for me right now is working on a new logo for the bike shop. And so I think it's a really worthwhile thing for the businesses to have. And, I don't know, it would just seem to be missing an opportunity if we didn't somehow bring Northland Caps into this whole, yeah.
I would like to see the Northlands Cap teacher come out to some places too, like MC.
We can attest here at City Hall, we had 4 different strands this fall. Unbelievable what those kids were able to do. We were very impressed, very pleased.
I've got a couple businesses and I'd like to have a lot of stuff redone. But I did myself. Yeah.
And we've had this conversation, well, I guess I had this conversation with the library. Maybe could be through the chamber or the city or through economic development, a co-op type Northland Caps that can be a resource to our different businesses that may not have enough of a demand to support an intern for.
But would the businesses say that the need is for both, adult and?
I don't know, that's why I was going to ask you all.
Because are we just trying to do something for the kids?
No.
Which is fine.
I have found the employees I see working around
I think we recognize that there's a lot of jobs available. At least that's what, when we started the discussion last year, I mean, and so I think having this job fair is a way that we can try to help the community bring employees into the town.
Yeah,
So-
I think there's definitely a need for both, and I would say that a lot of people probably don't realize that we could really use some talented people in Smithville. So, like, if I could find a good web developer, I'd probably hire him. But there's nobody going to come to Smithville looking for web development jobs. But they're here. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Maybe we do a Friday, Saturday to run the targets to students, and they can set back up on Saturday in the same location with the same format. And then we can market it at community college and over and.
We had a suggestion online for the hospital digital ad board too. That would be a good place because there's a lot of traffic. Because that's the thing with this area is, since we are semi-tourist reliant with the lake and everything, or at least we're hoping to capitalize on those, having some of the seasonal with the students and everything can make a huge difference in whether or not businesses can keep up. But you're right, we do need full-time people here to bring new skills as well, and how do we advertise it, how do we get it out? So I think doing a combined event on a 2-day spread is probably the best bet.
So we're going to meet and I will give you suggestions to.
And I have no idea whether Saturday's it's a harder day for me, of course, but I don't know for unemployed or underemployed people whether we would get a better turnout during the week or a Saturday would be better. I guess based on what maybe other people have done.
I will say, based on my previous experience that worked with a lot of unemployed, underemployed, and especially those that just didn't have transportation and such, the bigger issue is going to be location than it is date. Because a lot of them are looking for jobs, but they may not have a ride. It needs to be somewhere walkable that they can pop in. They're probably not going to have a resume, so we may want to have a couple people there. Some of the teachers even potentially saying, hey, let's throw together a really quick, even if it's a written or a simple type resume that you can run down with the interviewers and basically say, here's what I've done, here's what I know how to do, I'll do what's needed in the job. So, a lot of what I worked with previously was just trying to find jobs flexible enough to figure out that these people could be good workers for them. So.
I wonder if there's, for me anyway, I could be pretty flexible on schedule, which is what you said that reminded me, as far as like stay-at-home moms or dads that have to get their kids off to school and then want to be there when they come home. I don't know how many other people could use those type of people. And the school would seem like a great way to reach those people because probably their kids are in school and that's why they have that kind of odd availability. But it may work for a lot of people.
Okay, you got one more item?
The only other thing I have is
It's on the agenda, right?
I'm hoping you will tonight.
There could be a resident, I added reimbursement programs. So,
Crap, I was almost
Micah and I are going on Thursday night to the Historic Business District meeting we're going to sync up a community calendar of all events, and we're going to roll out this program. We may not be able to hit all of our event organizers because we kind of have a 48-hour window. So he's going to reintroduce it at the chamber luncheon in February, and we'll have the forms available to us up there. So the only other event organizers that we might miss is maybe you can put it online, we can email it out, and David Lynn and John Beaver are two that may not make either of those events, but we can make sure we get it. But they've had
They're way ahead of the game.
yeah, so they're familiar with it. But everyone else, I think we should be able to hit between the chamber luncheon and the historic district.
They've both already made contact
Emails.
directly.
Okay.
What do I need to do now?
Yeah.
Do you have information on the brick house?
I do not. I haven't been given any information to share, so.
Yeah. Last I heard, someone was in there because they had a water leak, frozen pipe, and they had to do some repairs.
Saw some workers in this morning.
Associated with it. I've also heard, but I haven't been able to speak to anyone directly, who it is that's looking at coming in, but I'm waiting to get some confirmation.
I've heard lots of gossip that some vehicles parked outside, but nothing I can share.
We saw ice on the sidewalk from where the water rolled out of the building.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you just passed an ordinance about that. Okay, okay, so the next item is the chairman's report, and I don't have a report, I'm not really the chairman. But I'm wondering if, I don't know if this item needs to be maybe replaced or something. Do we need to have like a school district report or anything like that as far as economic development, or do we have a rep here on the committee? I just want to know your thoughts on it.
We have a chamber report, that's a good point.
Yeah, but I mean, I can understand the chamber relates more to the economic development. I don't know if there's anything the school district would want to report on.
You know, I was doing that survey that came from the marketing company today, and it said, you know, why did you want to be a member of chamber? And one of the reasons I presented was knowing what's going on in the business community and connections. So I could see as business persons in the community, knowing what's going on in the schools might be of some benefit to all of you. So I'd be happy to do that if that's the direction the council wants to go.
I don't know if Marshall would want to leave that on there or not, but
I
just dawned on me earlier that.
I'll certainly have that conversation with him, or maybe Micah will. Somebody will have that conversation and see if we can't clean up the agenda. The chairman has a little bit of discretion as to setting the agenda, as Pete very well
I think
knows.
Marshall needs to be consulted.
Yeah, so we'll talk to him and see what he wants to do.
Yeah, probably so.
Sort of like algebra class.
Well, I wonder if we even make it a round table where we all just kind of share what's going on.
And similar
that's
to
much better.
similar to what we've done, kind of an open forum, open discussion. We do a quick report, and where we're at. Here's what's going on.
Yeah, I think I agree with
Because I had a note that I didn't chime in yet on, but I attended the St. Luke's Community Leaders Group meeting on Friday, and they're putting a CT machine in here, and it'll be up and running by the end of February. That's huge for our community. That's a great addition. So if folks need something taken care of here, they can do a lot more diagnostics here without having to be sent down the road. So, I think that's a great thing for our folks to know.
And economic development, as I think they announced that they offered contracts to all of the Mosaic employees.
They did, and they've heard back from almost all of the APPs, but very few of the physicians. They haven't until tomorrow. I'm on the St. Louis board.
And the two here were positive, right?
They didn't say. I don't know that for a fact. Smithville's one of 6 locations in Northland. It's not a done deal. It was made clear today. None of this is a done deal. But there's one location that is really, the deal is 50-50. It sounds like they're confident that 5 of the 6 will go through. So it's great for St. Luke's. It really is. Mosaic came here and came down and provided these extended hours, and we're very aggressive. And St. Luke's had to kind of adjust some philosophies in how they do business. If you go to the clinic here now, presently, at St. Luke's, you probably notice some changes in terms of service in the past 18 months. And, so it's competition's good.
It's a very good thing. You learn a lot from
It's
it.
good for St. Luke's.
It is.
Acquiring all of those.
Okay.
Anything else anyone wants to throw in on at this point? Okay. Next item is the EDC Ordinance.
I have drafted what I understood to be the conversation that we had at the last meeting on numerous issues associated with the EDC makeup and how that sets and how the elections occurs and all that, so that we can kind of do some of the other bylaw stuff. So this is my draft I'm throwing out to you to look at. Keeping in mind we've separated it somewhat from a 9-member board that goes through the same process to, we have an alderman representative that gets elected. This one, as we discussed at the meeting, the alderman would be elected by the Board of Aldermen, like they do the Planning Commission. It's an election, and they go from there.
You may have public comment.
And then we have the chamber and the school district, which are specific representatives. The rest of it is a general member, and that election, in the way it's drafted now, would be the school board and the chamber board make a recommendation as to who their selection will be. That goes to the mayor, who then ultimately, because of the way things are set up, the mayor gets to then make that recommendation or have conversation with them, whatever, to make that to the board for board approval, Board of Aldermen approval, and then they set. Those elections all occur, and those appointments all would occur right around the same time that the Board of Aldermen election occurs, so that's when the election we could set the election for the president or the chairman of the EDC and any ancillary offices. We can set up in that same process, but it gives us a 1 year, here's when it happens. The other aspect of it is it becomes a lot easier to have the chair or the chamber and the school district representatives to not be a 3-year term and then have to get reappointed, or a 1-year term. They get appointed, and at any time the school district board or the chamber board would have the ability to say, Leah's off, Todd's off, for whatever reason, because it's their representative. They may move to other employment, they may do something else, and when that happens, then they have to go back through the same process. They come up with somebody, nominate it to the mayor. In consultation with the mayor, he forwards it to the board after that process, and it goes forward. That was the hardest part, to figure out how to make all that work and change all the other stuff. Again, to make it all kind of work based upon the discussions we had. And then vacancies, number 2 on the back page, vacancies filled the same manner as regular appointments, so we process that through. There is a provision about if you miss 3 consecutive meetings or you resign, you can do that certainly at any time, but if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, that would be cause to have you pulled from the EDC. And then it sets out when the election comes for the chairman in 4, and then 5 is the ability to adopt all the bylaws that we talked about. These were the foundational changes we need to make this happen. And then lastly, changed C significantly so that it wasn't making policy and decision recommendations to the board, but focused you all towards the economic development strategic plan that we're going to be reviewing here shortly, and how to implement that. So that's going to be the primary focus, so that we can, 2 things, ensure that strategic plan gets implemented and gets reviewed. That way there's a plan. We're not focusing on this little item or that little item. Here's what we're doing. Those were the based upon watching the meeting again on Facebook. That was the gist of what I got out of the same conversation, and it reflected my notes that way. So if you have any questions about this or changes that you'd like to see, let's get that done so we can make a recommendation up to the board whenever you guys are ready.
Now, the only comment I had on this was, if a member may be removed upon receipt of resignation in written form or missing 3 consecutive meetings. May be removed. I mean, if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, it's not applying an automatic removal. That would be at the discretion of the mayor to remove. Someone who's
yeah,
not
yeah.
participating, basically. 3 meetings is 3 months, really.
Yeah, and ultimately.
Or should it say 3 months, because we were doing every 2 weeks there for a stint last year, so.
Well, we could say also 3 consecutive regular meetings to eliminate that, because some of those were special meetings.
Yeah.
And if you want it to be operational,
I mean, I like it that it's in there, because if someone is not participating, really, there's probably someone out there that might want to be participating in.
right, and lives change, things change.
Yeah.
So the other aspect of it is that's the language that's in the current one.
Yeah.
I added some stuff related to the other folks. That's what's in there now. I don't disagree that we could, if you miss it, that would be the recommendation up to the board. If they miss 3 consecutive regular meetings, they vacate their seat, or it's.
But I guess what I'm asking is that it not be automatic if it does happen. Yeah, I know, but I just wanted to be clear on.
Okay.
There could be some life circumstance that would totally justify.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I think it's clear if the committee sees that someone is not participating,
But it doesn't say who would,
yeah.
the mayor,
All appointments generally go through the mayor. Yeah. So.
disappointments.
Appointments and disappointments, yeah. And ultimately, if this is in there, organically how the city works, it would be the mayor's ability to, you vacated the seat. May means his action generally. Because he's the appointing authority, he's the titular head of the entire city.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment here? The purpose for this is not necessarily just to boot people off the committee or anything like that. Obviously, part of that consideration, we do have a member who's consistently missing, depending on those circumstances. I'm not going to just go ahead and say, hey, I don't like, that person missing so much, I'm going to remove them. I certainly would consult with the leadership of the chamber and anybody here, just to see what the real story is, because I obviously don't make it very many chamber meetings, but the purpose is to make sure that we have a great committee that's operational, that has all the members they need. If we have a member that consistently misses, and by so doing does not mean any benefit to the committee, we want to get all 9 cylinders running on this committee, all 9 positions, so we can move forward.
Are there any other reasons why you might remove a member that we haven't accounted for?
Sometimes if there is a potential crime or conviction.
Yeah, and ultimately there's stuff in the state law that lays out how you can do it.
All right, so we don't need to readdress.
Right, yeah, we don't have to itemize why. This one is, and the state law doesn't say missing 3 meetings. So putting it here gives that as an option. The process goes through the standard, the mayoral aspect of it.
Yeah, I realize that this is not the issue why we brought this back, but
Right.
But when you do bring a new ordinance,
Right. If it's broke, we need to fix it. That's the intent. Yeah.
all right.
Last sentence under item 1. Last part of that sentence, the qualified and shall receive no compensation. I've been waiting on check.
You're not qualified.
Well, personal satisfaction is a form of compensation, right?
That's all compensation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other duties as assigned, right?
Are there any other?
We appreciate you not missing 3 in a row.
Okay. Any other comments on the proposed ordinance?
Ultimately, Chairman, we would need a recommendation of some size, or we can bring it back to the next month to try to make some tweaks if that's necessary, or if you guys are fine, it'd be a motion to make this recommendation up to the board.
We have a motion to make this recommendation of this ordinance to be there a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we've recommended that you bring this to the board for,
We'll put it on the next agenda that we can get this completed in, and the board will have your recommendation. Thank you.
okay, the next item is the Community Investment Program amendments.
Okay. We already discussed most of these changes, so I'm not going to take a lot of your time with it. There's just a few I want to point out. The first is I am suggesting a change to the name of this program because CIP is used in other contexts in the city. I would suggest a simple change like at the top of this page here, Community Grant Program, since that's essentially what it is and it doesn't conflict with any other acronyms. Most of the rest of this is the same as we discussed in the last meeting, clarifying some of the language to make it more clear that this is a reimbursement program, not an upfront cost. And then you can also see on the second page of the policy, we have added a proposed budget outline for them. I found about 10 items that were generally considered as necessary to a successful event like this. Not all of them apply to every one of these sort of events. That's okay. They can say we have no cost for shipping, for instance, or travel, whatever. But in general, those are the categories that we would suggest go into their budgets. And then I did go ahead and add the statement of responsibilities, restating the compliances that we expect of them to meet with the city. We had already discussed all of those previously. If there's any of those that you don't feel are appropriate as you read through, obviously you can strike them. I think that covers the policy recommendation. As I said, it's much as we discussed last time. So it just sort of takes into account.
I'm trying to scan through this, and on the first page, I don't see anything that says reimbursement.
Okay, so that's in, if you look at, where did it go? Number 3 on the first page. Upon its, that's the one that I clarified a lot of the language on. Upon its final determination, city staff will thereafter issue an award letter in accordance with the recommendations of the EDC. Funds will only be dispersed upon receipt of all applicable submissions, including but not limited to receipts or invoices or other proof of actual expenditures. These documents should be submitted to the finance director at City Hall.
Okay, well, that was new when this first came around last year, when the, I guess afterwards, but is the reimbursement part of the problem of the whole thing too? How do we fill it out? Okay, can we,
Well, for me,
I have, and
can we title it Community Reimbursement Grant Program?
we can.
Or Community Investment
Well, and the other
Reimbursement
thing
Program,
is,
I kind of like that.
On the new application, we also, once we get to that here, I have it bolded and underlined. You hereby acknowledge your understanding that funds from this program are only dispersed after the fact, pending provision of all necessary and applicable receipts. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to actually read it, but
What I'm trying to do is
see the title, get that it's reimbursement. I get
get
you.
it up there.
And that's fine. If we want to add that as part of the title, that can be another one of the changes in the policy.
Yes, well, let me ask you this. It'd be easier if we had a direct motion that changed the name from CGP to CIRP, that, if that's what you want. The community, the one that we had.
I will make a motion that we rename it the Community Investment Reimbursement Program.
CIRP.
How about the community, what is that?
Investment reimbursement program.
Community Investment Reimbursement
Which
Program.
means, again, it's only a one-word change from the current title. We're just adding reimbursement.
There's a motion on the floor. Can I get a second?
Yeah,
Okay. Now we can have discussion.
yeah.
What about the
Thank you, Mr.
Community
Chairman.
Reimbursement Assistance Program?
All right. Can we call for a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion to change the name?
It's been
Get a motion and a
moved,
second.
yeah.
Right, second.
We've had plenty of discussion.
All in favor of changing the name to the Community Investment Reimbursement Program?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I do have a number of comments that I made. Yeah, for this whole thing here, and I don't know if you're ready for that yet or not.
We changed it to this, is that right? No.
This one, this.
We added
Community investment
reinvestment, or reimbursement right here.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Yes. Sure. Reinvestment. Investment, reinvestment. No.
So it's the chirp.
Certain.
Chirp's better. We need another word. We need a name change. Yeah.
Community Happiness Investment Reimbursement Program.
Okay, so
Pete, where are yours?
Moving on.
Yeah.
okay, I got a lot. So, yeah, let's move on. All right, so I first reading through here, these questions that are asked here, are this is, and it turns out this is not the application, right?
No,
This is
these are
just the
original.
policy.
This is the policy as it was given to me. All the questions that showed up on the application, you guys had in the policy.
So in other words, all of these are reflected in this
On the
table?
application as well.
Table?
Correct.
Okay, because I basically, one thing that I saw that was missing here is no place where it asks for who the point of contact for the event is.
And that's on the application.
I didn't
So in this policy section, it says the EDC shall evaluate based on, and then it has those questions. But if you look on the application that's on the very back of your packet, the very first line on the right side says contact person, and right under that contact.
Okay.
That on the new suggested application. So it's name of host organization, contact person, contact phone, and the
Okay,
address of the host.
all right, so that's covered. The next comment I made was, you have this list of a budget right here. And I'm suggesting that we provide an example with the application so that people can see what we're expecting as a budget.
Yeah, we could provide a section that essentially a chart that they could fill in for us, or we could provide an example, like a completed example that shows.
Everything you're looking for. That's
Well, and because the thing is, when we discussed this last month, it was, do we provide them
If you
with?
get it in a similar format from every applicant, it'll be easier to evaluate.
You're right. It's what we had discussed was just, do we set up a baseline of these are the things that need to be in it, or do we provide an actual document? And we can do either.
I think what you've got here in the policy is fine. Then you can,
Yeah.
but then with the application, you can say, here's an example budget. We
Okay.
want your
On the
budget.
application, then, do you just want me to include a chart that has those lines that have to be in it, and those are the ones they have to
You
fill
can
in?
just fill it in.
I don't like that they have to use that, and like I'll say David Glenn, who's been doing this event forever, knows what he's doing.
Right. That was my
It's
thought.
not user-friendly, it's one more step, we know his budget,
I mean, it would be very easy for him to fill
But
this
I
out.
think it's a great tool for those that don't know how to do a budget or don't have a budget.
We could potentially just attach an example budget then, I could even ask David if we can use one of his, to the paperwork. When they download the application, we can label, example budget, include these items.
Yeah, his might be a little.
Yeah, I think from his,
Might
it'd
be
be,
a little easier.
yeah, he'd be able to fill in this more simpler one from what he's using, I would think it'd be easy. But I think I worry about the ones that don't, maybe aren't as organized,
I think
and
that
that's,
if they have.
this would force them to.
Attach a budget or fill in this, and it's.
Right.
Marketing, your income, your expenses, and open lines to fill in.
Because this may make some of these event organizers think about that.
Now, let me ask you this, Pete, so I understand. Are we looking more from a standpoint of wanting to put something like that in the policy, or is that something that
It's
you're
in the
ready-
policy, you've got what you're looking for.
Right, but I
I'm
guess-
asking that we show, I think we had an issue last year when we rolled out that people were confused about what types of information to provide on that. And I think as much guidance as we can provide with the application would help
So
everyone.
that's more of
in
an
the process.
implementation strategy, how staff can get this out.
So if
Already
you have
a couple of
if you have
them
a
working on it.
form that's like a blank budget, and you ask them, to provide
Okay.
that information, or you provide an example of one that's filled out, they can see what we're looking for.
I think I can do both, honestly. I can probably have a single-page document where half page shows like an example budget of how they fill it out, and the bottom half is a blank version of that same form that they actually fill out. And if when they're submitting this, if they want to attach their own budget, that's fine. If they want to fill out ours, or they need that example, I think that's fine as well. I don't think we necessarily have to I don't think we should only accept our form, but I agree having more guidance available.
I think if we can just.
Well, and it gives us I think the critical element isn't that we get it, it's that we get the similar features of it so that we can compare them apples to apples.
And again, that's something, when it gets submitted and it hits my desk, I can say, okay, here, even if David doesn't submit in our format, I can just say, here were his totals for those items, in case you guys want to look it over.
Right. Okay, so that's an implementation thing, we can
Yep,
knock
I can
that
do
out
that.
Okay,
staff-wise.
my next note was on number 6C, the special event organizer shall be responsible for notifying the city of any street closings required for the event. And my question is, how will street closings be handled?
We already have a policy in
Yeah.
place specifically related to it.
So the applicant, all they have to do is say, I need streets closed.
And there's a procedure they go through,
There's a form.
a special event procedure.
Okay, so maybe we should reference that in here, so that they know.
Does there say
In the
must
code.
complete?
Yeah,
It needs to
all right.
say must complete the street closure.
Well, and that's why in 6A, I made the really general statement of the special event sponsor organizer shall be responsible for knowing and complying with all City of Smithville policies, ordinances.
Okay, but you got a separate bullet that's
We'll
talking
hit right
about
on
this.
that.
Right, but we can definitely point out.
In accordance with
In accordance
the
with, yeah.
special event, street closure policy.
And then put a link to it.
Yeah.
Okay, and down in H, I'm recommending that we use boldface in some of this concerning insurance needs.
Okay.
So that people, it pops out at them that there's a certain thing, there's certain limits here, like $1 million for the liquor liability insurance, et cetera. I mean, I don't know, so I was just thinking that it would be, it seems to be an important item that we've stumbled on before, and if we can make sure that they see it somehow.
There's a standard font size and everything else associated with that in most state laws when they require it. I'll look that up. And we'll put the font size.
And that's just a minor thing, I just. Okay, and then, okay, so the next item here, security, item I there. And my question is, what size event will require additional security?
Again, it was a general item that I had suggested including from the St. Joe version. There are some, for instance, we've had a request for a Metal Mayhem Festival recently. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I'm going to suggest some security because mosh pits are common in metal fests. So
And so basically, when you have an event, you fill out your paperwork and get it.
Well, it says,
Chief Lockridge is the one that decides whether.
yeah,
well, it's not what it says here. It says a special event sponsor and organizer shall be responsible for providing security at whatever levels he or she deems appropriate.
and again, that language was taken from the St. Joe. We can say in accordance with the
With
police chief's recommendation.
coordination with Smithville Police.
Yeah.
Would be
Do we have a
appropriate.
policy on X number? So it's not just Chief Lockridge's decision?
Well, it's kind of limited in how big it is, but yeah, and he's got, and we can make reference to the specific.
Okay.
And I think all of this, to be quite frank, is all contained in the currently approved board version. It's called the
Yeah, if we can
Public
just
facility
reference to
use
it, then,
policy.
yes, if you reference to it, then
Public
that would be the best approach.
Yep.
Okay, and then, sorry about all these, but,
No, this is information, we gotta have it.
so item J, okay, so we talk about, a sketch plan shall be, provided, I got overhead plans showing locations of any structures, tents, booths, or other activities in relation to public streets and existing buildings. And I wondered if maybe with the application, we could provide a schematic, a street schematic that could just be drawn on.
One of the big problems is where are they holding it?
Yeah.
Because if they're, for
David Lynn's
instance,
completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, for downtown, for example, you could do that.
right,
Or,
we have one for downtown and that's easy enough. It's more, if they're gonna host it at the old farmland,
okay, so
I mean, it's,
I understand that, and I thought through that myself too after I wrote that, and I wrote Google Maps printout.
right. Yeah,
So-
it doesn't have to be anything fancy, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how people would probably do this. Do we want to suggest that they do something like a Google map?
We can, or we can just, if they have questions about it, we can always, if they contact us, we can always offer them our suggestions.
Right, and
I don't know that we should put in policy,
Yeah,
use Google Maps.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you that if this was a thing that popped in my mind, if I were going to be applying,
Right. Well, and the other aspect of it is during the review process, when it's in staff's hands and we're trying to do those things, this is a perfect example of, hey, trying to evaluate your application, what's your plan for this? It's not real clear with what you've got. Could you maybe do a Google map or something like that? So that we understand what the application is to get a better understanding of how much
Okay.
investment's going to be needed.
and I think that my final comment is, what about trash collection? I didn't see anything that required event organizers to deal with trash during the event, like to have trash barrels.
Yeah, that's in the
It
public
is,
facilities.
and I thought we had it somewhere in here.
I didn't see it either.
I didn't
I
see
may
it.
not have included it in this version. I can include it as part of the statement of responsibilities.
Because again, yeah, that would be responsibility of the organizers,
Yeah.
or volunteers, or an expense that they actually hire or something. I don't know, depending on what the event is. So,
Okay.
On L, so, one sentence, a separate application is required, is coming out. In order to qualify for assistance, the special event must be open to the general public and all activities must comply with this policy and all city codes and ordinances. A separate application is required.
I probably just missed it when I was cutting from the same
Maybe a
Joe.
special event application, a separate special event application.
Public facility use,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is required.
a separate public
Yeah, that doesn't
facility
clear.
use.
Come on, Pete.
Okay.
Are you ready for my list?
Trash collection.
I have on the form so you're.
On the form, I think you probably went their email.
Oh, email? Yep.
And I have 2 lines we can write.
Okay. Which one?
I feel like the 2 questions, what needs to be from the community and how will this event benefit the community? Could be combined into one.
Okay. That one makes sense to me. That's easy enough.
And then on the next page, I would suggest rephrasing will there be any need for electricity to possibly, will you be contracting out? Or rephrase, I feel like it's open-ended, will you need it, are you providing it? Instead of, are you providing electricity to your vendors or are you contracting?
Well, and does the city have any, we play any role in assisting with?
Depends,
Depends on
I
where
was
it's
gonna
at.
say, because I know we've,
depends on where it's at.
because if it's downtown, I know we can assist with that.
And I think that's going to be, I think we want to know, are you going to be, well, what's the magnitude of your event? So in the public facility use application, that could be a question.
Yeah.
But in this, it's just a, when you have electricity, same for barricades, is there any need for road blockage?
Yeah, actually, these questions aren't the same questions that we have in the policy. I mean,
No, these are ones we discussed last time as a few items that might impact our decision here, but that they would not, there are separate policies to address their actually getting those needs met. Food or alcohol being served, we need to know that, but the policy is completely different. They have to go fill out separate stuff for that.
okay, got it.
The police escort, the road blockages, we need to know that, but they fill out a different piece for that. Same thing for the electricity, if it's in an area that we can provide. I think it is important for us to know those.
I just feel like we're opening the door for expectations. Like maybe, will you be contracting out electrical needs? Will you be contracting out road closure, road problems or something?
We need streets closed, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, or will you be closing streets?
Okay.
Road blocking, street cleaning,
I just feel, I just know. That doesn't have to know. There's gonna be expectation of, well, are you providing electricity? So, just rephrasing those two.
Is this going to be an online form as well?
Yes, I've already got a fillable version that submits direct to me. When you click submit, it emails me. And it gives you a chance to also attach your budget document.
Okay, in my experience with in my past career using forms like that, you can actually have highlights that pop up help screens on a fillable PDF.
Yeah,
Have you ever
for
done
basically
anything like that? 'Cause-
annotations where when they mouse over it, it gives them an explanation.
Yeah, so like, will any food or alcohol be served? And then if they mouse over it, it may explain the need for additional insurance and whatever.
I can also code them if they enter or I could do a drop down or a check mark even, that if they enter or click yes, then it opens up the other document that they need, or it just pops up with a note that just says, hey, you need to do this.
And then the only other thing.
Let's be nice.
Is maybe like right here, please attach, please complete or attach the budget.
Okay.
So I don't see that on the form.
I have it, how is the event, at the bottom of the first page, how is the event funded? Please attach your budget document.
Because you will attach now we will be attaching probably these budget examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would come on the last page after that
Okay.
to
I
show.
can just see on these two electricity, they'll say, well, I put them there, they're gonna show up that day waiting for their electricity.
Well, and remember, when these come to me, I'm probably going to be calling these people and clarifying what their needs are and that they have to go do these extra things too. So it's not, I mean, when I check on how much they've prepped, that's going to be one of the things I ask. You know that you have to go do this, right? Oh, I didn't know. Okay, so hopefully that will resolve most of those. But I see what you're saying. It does set up an expectation of nothing else.
And trash removal is in there, Pete.
Where is it? I thought I had included
It's
it
in the by the signing below acknowledgement.
Oh, that's right. I
Trash
included it
removal
now.
is the second to last item before you get to what they acknowledge, so.
Okay, but it wasn't in the
And
policy.
trash removal, yeah.
See, I focused on the policy, I guess, I didn't get on the application.
And here's what I can guarantee you. Next year, we'll be making these changes. We're gonna find out what's wrong and fix it. Yeah.
Right. I knew we would have, trouble the first time last year, because we were just rolling it
You
out.
almost need what you brought up, a question mark button. It's the subcategories here, Jeff, under that. Food, have your vendors contacted Clay County for the health food permit.
I know that is in the public facility.
Right, and that's what I wanted to clarify, because we were starting to bleed over into that a bit. This is, because we don't need super detailed plans on a lot of this. They need to be prepared to submit them when time comes, because you got a special use facility, the public use, facility use stuff to deal with. This is, we want them to have all of this stuff prepared and budgeted. This is a trigger to, what's your security concern? You're selling alcohol at a metal fest and you're not budgeting police protection?
Yeah,
for
a lot of people
security?
interested.
Yeah, I think, even though the other policies cover these things and that, I think one of the things that our strategic plan is trying to do is to help improve communications of things. And so as much as we can, as redundant as it seems on that, if someone's in the middle of an application or whatever and they have the ability to see more information,
Right.
we should do that.
Oh, I don't disagree
any way we
with that.
can, so that even though it's pulled out of another policy.
Right.
So.
It does also raise the question a little bit, how much do we trust an event planner that hasn't done due diligence to figure out some of these other things? It's one thing if you're inexperienced and we can say, hey, reminder, you need to go do this. But if these are coming to us at the start of the year to decide, and the festival's not until summer or fall, if by that time they haven't figured out, hey, there's a public use thing that I need to go through, and there's these other aspects, I mean, that's kind of on them as an event planner.
Well, and the other aspect of it is they may be having an
trying to
event not on public property, not on a city street.
And some of those don't.
So none of it would be triggered,
applies,
but
right.
simply attaching or having available a copy of the public facility use application and a link to the policy will get them, hey, if you're doing it in a city park, on a city street, any of those things, you need to know this and be prepared with your budget.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion?
We've renamed it.
Remove the suggested changes.
I move to approve the block changes discussed.
So we can roll it out on Thursday night.
Yeah, so does anyone else have any comments?
I think everything we've done is pretty positive too.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Simplify.
If there's no more comments, all in
Who's,
favor?
hang on just a second. I'm trying to get ahead of the minutes this time.
Jeff.
Jeff made the motion. Who seconded it? Leah. Okay.
I'm taking notes too.
Do you want the list of all the changes?
No.
Thank
No, thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Pete, any paperwork?
All right, I'll have the final policy.
Midwest Metal Fest, please turn in your paperwork.
We've sent them requests. So.
Do you want my
Tickets are
notes?
now available.
No, I took care of all.
All right. Okay, the next item, review of strategic plan goals 1 and 2, and it's almost 8 o'clock. What we can do, if you want, to keep going. Yeah.
We're moving on Pete's time because Pete's the chair today.
I always hold 2-hour meetings, you guys know that. Okay, so when we, just to review here, when we created the strategic plan, is that last year or the year? What was that?
Yeah,
2
2
years.
years ago.
We vowed to.
We only had 5 or 6 months of the first version,
Yes.
and then.
All right, so we vowed to reevaluate it and update it on an annual basis. So we're on the agenda tonight to start first 2 goals. If we need to make any adjustments to these goals or any comments or whatever, we can start the discussion on that.
And two parts, Pete. The dark blue portion is your goal, and the second are the action items below it. More likely, at least initially, we'll probably be working on the bottom 2, the action items.
Yeah.
The strategies, whatever you want to call them.
I mean, I think it's all open
Yeah,
for
right,
discussion,
right.
but I mean, yeah, right, I agree. Most likely, we'll be updating the actions because actions get completed and we have new ideas.
Or we find some that are just bleh. They don't
But these were very broad. I mean, we intentionally did that to start. And, so goal 1 is to focus marketing to attract new business, citizens, and visitors to Smithville. And the actions were to maintain a consistent message for Smithville by utilizing the adopted 2016 branding initiative framework for all future communication and marketing strategies. And the second one was to utilize a wide range of marketing opportunities to promote Smithville.
And I believe this new marketing
Contract, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're basically at the beginning of that, really, action, right?
Baby steps, but now we're going to be, as you all know, you've received the paperwork, the emails, and have started that process. Is it the February meeting?
Yeah, I misspoke last month and said they would be here this month. They sent out all the stakeholder emails yesterday, and then for the next meeting, they'll be here to present their findings and initial recommendations. So, but that's one of the big goals with them is to get a PR and marketing plan for us to act on. So.
Okay. anything, any other comment? Anybody have any other comments on goal 1? Or?
I would just say, on social media, we've got a lot of citizens clamoring for a community center of some sort along these lines. City-run pool, YMCA, something. Obviously, in a perfect world, we'd just say absolutely. The reality of the matter is it's going to take community investment. They're going to either have to use some of the toolbox measures that we have on our website that they can help fund it themselves, or find outside investors.
So do you think, so, I hadn't thought of.
You're losing your group over here, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
But remember, community centers,
I live in my own world.
community centers bring in more people, and they increase our downtown business too.
I have a list of amenities that I've heard.
Right, and I will tell
community for
you,
the last 3 years.
community center was one of the highest priorities for this community in 1988, 1998, 2008, and it's no different today. It's a high priority, and there are things moving with the evaluation of it. 2013, we did mayor appointed a committee and went through a fairly long process, and we ultimately, a community center such as that amenity would be a huge economic boom for us, but we also know what the cost is. Feasibility becomes an aspect, and that is in our budget this year. We have feasibility study concept out there, so we'll.
So I guess what I'm wondering is if do we need to add an action that works toward community amenities to help attract new business citizens and visitors?
I will share. I did a lot of studying what Gladstone did and how they made that work. And what they ended up doing was they created a community priority group, and I forget the exact name that they called it, and I can tell you in a minute. Please don't go there.
Park?
I'm going to move to adjourn like I do in the other meetings.
Move to adjourn.
That's why they ended up.
Yeah, a citizens-based strategic planning. And so they used a third party to help facilitate that, the National Civic League. And that process created a group of citizens who went and carried forward the message of, we want a community center, here's what we want in our community center, and then here's a funding mechanism on how to do that. And that group carried that forward in order to make that happen. I think these seats up here can't make that happen, but the community can make it together.
Right. The school